Hi there. Since you clicked on the title, I imagine you are quite familiar with this business of your nervous system being stuck on fight or flight. If that's the case, or even if that's not the case, if you just click the video out of curiosity, I'm glad that you are here. And I want to start by saying that this is a very familiar territory for me. I grew up in a very difficult, very abusive, toxic environment, and what that led to is being stuck in that fight or flight response for as long as, pretty much for as long as I can remember. And definitely 20 plus years. Recently, actually only until very recently, I've slowly started retraining my nervous system to get out of that. And my life has changed drastically because of it. It's a lot easier to connect with people and to work and, have creative pursuits like recording this video and talking to you. Everything just takes a lot less effort and you just feel a lot better in your body. And I have been on that journey for about 5 years now. And here are three lessons that I think you might find helpful that I have learned along the way. So, the first thing that I recognized is the nervous system responses to the world around us, or whatever situation you are finding yourself in. Um, it might be a presentation at work, it might be, meeting new people, hosting a social event, or whatever it is. The way there are certain ways that your body you'll will manifest the fight or flight or the trauma response that has often been trained or through a lot of repetition, because when we are young we get exposed to these experiences pretty often. Like, for example, someone like me who was constantly exposed to abusive environments and to a lot of physical and verbal abuse, those patterns get deeply etched into the body. And then whenever I would find myself in a new situation, I would automatically tense up without recognizing that I am doing it. How would that look like? Like if I start paying attention to my body, I would see that I'm tensing from the shoulders, and then there is this tightness in my chest. What else? Another one would be your endocrine system might react to that. Like, literally, some people feel like they're gonna throw up. And then another thing that we over time learn to do subconsciously is we would push those responses down and then keep going, which in turn makes the whole thing worse. And at one point, your nervous system just gives out. And that is how you get all these stories around people being severely burnt out and getting depressed. It was definitely the case with me. And while I have found modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very much thought based, for those of you who are not familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, it's the most popular therapy modality that's out there right now. And the idea there is essentially your thoughts influence your feelings, and then the feelings in turn influences the actions. So, what cognitive behavioral therapy does is you work on your thoughts, you see the flaws in your thoughts, and then work with that. And because thoughts are oftentimes very removed from reality, because the mind has a way of looking at things through a negative lens, especially for people who has had a difficult upbringing, or like has a lot of trauma in their past. So the premise of CBT is that if you work with that, your feelings are going to change. While I have found practices like that helpful, what ultimately clicked for me is to address things directly into the body. Like, for example, noticing all the tightness that I'm holding in my body, and that there's this like tingling, vibrating sensations, pulsating, and then adopting approaches partly to release those tightnesses and in case some of those sensations can't be removed, you work on accepting them. You learn to be with them. So a body-based approach is ultimately what made it click for me. So the second lesson that I would like to share with you is that the mind, for people whose nervous systems are very sensitized, like in this case, like you're stuck in hypervigilance and fight or flight or whatever, the mind has a tendency to kind of think your way out of this. I was definitely that person. So in any situation that I would go into, let's say I'm going into a conversation or I'm going to do a presentation at work, whatever it is, I would try to come up with many different scenarios in my mind so that I have a plan for every possible scenario, instead of being able to trust my own abilities and also being able to trust the people around me, that they're going to cooperate with me to figure out how to move forward. So I'd always be like, I'd have this planning to basically have a solution for every possible scenario. And as you can imagine, that's exhausting. That's exhausting. We never really know the solution to every possible problem. And it's impossible. It's impossible for the mind to forecast every scenario and plan for that. And even if you can do it, I mean, keep doing it for like some 15, 20 years. And, this is how you find yourself being burnt out. And I eventually realized that you can't think your way out of these problems. And the way I discovered that is there was this realization that whenever my mind presents a scenario that would represent a quote-unquote potential doom, I would go down a train of thought trying to figure out how I can potentially mitigate that scenario. But then new scenarios will keep coming up. And all of this is happening without me even being in the situation. I'm doing this to myself while sitting by myself at my apartment, maybe at 3 in the morning. And that would in turn keep me up at night. It would make it very difficult to show up. I mean, which makes perfect sense. Why would you be excited to show up for life if you are seeing it through this lens of a bunch of problems just showing up, and you feel like you always have to have an answer ready, and if you don't, something really bad is going to happen. So that is the framing, right? So if you have an answer ready, if you know the perfect solution and the perfect response to every possible scenario that might arise, or every possible thing that people might tell you, you're golden, or else you're worthless, right? So this is something that my mind was doing a lot, and which in turn, would lead my nervous system to be more sensitized, and it incapacitate me even more when it comes to the situation, right? Because I'm so hung up on saying the perfect and saying the most accurate things, I wouldn't be able to say anything, which would lead to more nervous system freeze, like being stuck, being more tight, being more tense when I am in the actual event. So I really think thinking more there is not the solution, which is also related to my first point. We got to reconnect to our bodies, and we also have to learn how to respond to those thought stimuli, because we don't really control our thoughts. They just pop up in consciousness based off of our past conditioning and whatever we're exposed to in the environment right now. And whenever that happens, we have to figure out a way to relate to that stimuli, thoughts being the stimuli in this case, in a way that doesn't take down that rabbit hole of having more negative thoughts and then identifying with that in turn affecting the body and causing more sensitization. Lesson number 3. I think this is probably the most impactful one because, like when you have embodied yourself in the world in a certain way for such a long time, and because for a lot of us who went through those kind of traumatic experiences and have been exposed at a very early age, the patterns that get lodged into the nervous system, their holds are really strong. And if we go into recovery expecting that these patterns are going to be rewired overnight, it's likely not going to happen. So, and it's also, it doesn't quite work if you're looking to put in a huge volume of work, at a time and then miraculously expect yourself to be healed within months. That's not quite how my journey has been. It really takes tiny little steps and committing to one practice at a time for some reasonable period of time. So that idea of one thing at a time and one small step at a time really applies. I took up a Zen meditation practice a few months ago, and I am at 83 days right now. And every time I sit just for 10 minutes. Even sitting just for 10 minutes, they have had, like these little sits, they have had a significant impact on my relationship with my thoughts. So whatever practice is it that you are doing, it might be breath work, it might be this just sitting practice that I took on to learn how to be with the emotions and thoughts that I'm having in the moment, or it might be, I don't know, like some form of therapy modality like EMDR or CBT. Any modality that you take on, you have to stick to the program. Like it takes a while, like I would say give it at least 30 days, maybe even more, because by that time, it takes a little bit of time to learn the skill, to practice it effectively, and also see the effects, like how it is affecting your mind and body, and to make any conclusive statements as to whether this is working for you or not, and then have insight into if it's not working, why is it not working, what is it that you're going through. And a lot of this requires reflection as well. And if we are just, in a frenzy, in a sense of anxiety about just changing things right away, it's very hard to do that. It's very hard to have that scientist's mindset in the whole process. So that is the third and final thought that I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you found this helpful. Rewiring our relationship with our thoughts and desensitizing our nervous system, these are not trivial projects. They take time. They really do take a lot of time. But if you're persistent at it, I'm sure you'll make a serious dent and life is gonna feel so much better.